Welcome to Let's Talk About Mental Health. I'm Nels Kloster. I'm an addiction psychiatrist and I work in Southern Vermont.
And I'm Robert Stack. I'm a licensed alcohol and drug counselor.
And as a reminder to our viewers to contact us with questions or with comments, we have an email address and a Facebook page. The email is questions@letstalkvt.com and the Facebook is facebook.com/letstalkvt. Okay. And this evening we have a guest on our show, Mary Ellen Copeland. I think welcome back, Mary Ellen. We had you on our second season.
Yes.
And we thought it was time for an update.
Right,
about RAP and the great work that's going on with the Copeland Center.
Well, I'm really glad to be here. It's always nice to be right in my hometown and doing something as good as this and having as much reach. Since I was here the last time, I think RAP has taken on a life of its own. The Wellness Recovery Action Plan really just grows and grows and grows and grows. I'm told that it's the mental health program that's most widely used in the world. It's in Japan, it's in Hong Kong, it's in the Netherlands, it's in Denmark. It's everywhere, and it's all over the United States. And that just makes me feel really good. It started here in Vermont. Back in 1997, there was a group of people, and we got together up in northern Vermont and we're trying to learn together how people can help themselves feel better and get well. People who'd had really rough time with mental health stuff. And so we were working on it for 8 weeks, and we were talking about diet and light and exercise and all the good things you should do for yourself. And a woman stood up and she said, I could never organize all of this into my life. And so we took a couple more days. The state of Vermont gave us a couple more days, and 30 people, and we worked and worked and worked to figure out what we could do, what kind of a planning system could we come up with that would help people keep all the good stuff you do for yourself organized. And that was the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. And so I wrote one up for myself. And I started using it as my guide for everyday living. I'd had lots of problems with mental health difficulties, and they always come back to haunt me from time to time. And I got this rap going for myself, and I was doing a lot better, and people were noticing it. They said, life seems a lot easier for you. So I was invited to teach to do a workshop on basic recovery skills at a big conference. It was called the International Depressive and Manic Depressive Association Conference. They don't even call it that anymore, but anyway, it was in 1997. And they invited me to come and speak. And so I decided I would go, and I thought about it, and what am I going to talk about? And I said, I think I'll tell them about this plan. And I got all prepared, and then I went, and they had all these workshops, and they were somewhere, you could win the workshop, and there was a chemical formula of some drug across the thing, and another one, there was a brain slides, and they were showing these people's brain slides, and this was happening in these brains. And I said, maybe I'm in the wrong place here. So I did my workshop, and people came. Great crowds of people came, and they said they loved it. Finally, somebody's saying something that makes some sense to us. And from that, it's just grown and grown and grown, and I've written books about it. The first summer I wrote the Wellness Recovery Action Plan book, and people keep wanting more and more books, and they want, one of the people who was at one of the early conferences I spoke at took some video footage there, and then he came to Brattleboro and did some more footage, and we have video, we updated that lately. People just can't get enough of it. It's pretty amazing, and people find that they walk themselves out, whether it's an addiction problem, whether it's a weight problem, whether it's depression and anxiety, whether it's all of the issues that go along with the diagnosis like schizophrenia, all of those kinds of things. If they work at it themselves, and especially with peer support, they can walk themselves out to a place where they really like their life.
I like that model, and one of the things I used to use your depression workbook, and it was really helpful. And one of the things that I would do, I also would try to incorporate cognitive behavioral changes, and the idea of the person taking responsibility for their own recovery. Not only that, but being more introspective, self-aware, and looking for warning signs. Looking for, and the early warning signs especially, because then they sort of lent themselves to corrective behavior. In other words, I'm starting to think a certain way, I need to do this. I'm starting to act a certain way, I need to change my thought on that. And really getting people to understand that you look at your patterns, your associations, your thoughts, your actions. And I just found it really helpful. I mean, really honestly. And then of course there's and I mentioned this earlier, and I just want to repeat myself, but your warning, that was early warning signs, was, but warning signs said, if this is happening, do this.
Yeah. And you figured it out for yourself.
Right.
If like for me, I'll start noticing that it's a good thing I just live in Brattleboro, because I started noticing that when I was starting to get depressed, which I had a big problem with depression, I wouldn't look both ways when I crossed the street. I'd just go downtown and I would just go right across the street. And I wasn't answering the phone. If I saw anybody coming that I knew, I went into the vestibule of the store. And now instead of that, there's this, if I realize right away, you didn't look both ways when you crossed the street, therefore, you got to do some things for yourself. And usually what works for me is there's certain things I love to do. I love to play the piano. I'm not good at it, but I love to play it. I love to read a good book. I love to work on a quilt. I love to play with my grandchildren. I love to work in gardens. I have this whole list of things, so that now if I'm starting to feel depressed, I go to that list and I start doing stuff. And I do all the stuff that I love to do. And before long, it's not an issue for me anymore, and I'm just doing the stuff that's back on my list of stuff I have to do every day to stay as well.
And when I think about the elements, you really seem to sort of tapped into something that maybe very happy people do naturally.
Yeah.
And it obviously hits some kind of natural core, because I'm thinking about these expressions like a stitch in time saves 9, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Yeah. And I'm thinking when you talk about the various stages of this, sort of taking responsibility, there being sort of daily maintenance, and there being sort of early warning signs and next steps along the way, that you're doing a lot of this sort of work to make sure you don't get into trouble, that people sort of stay healthy, right? How to develop this wellness.
It's preventive in a way, but for lots of us, we've kind of gone past that. It's just sort of overtaken our lives. We have mental health difficulties that are so bad that we end up spending a lot of time in the hospital, or we're just kind of not making it in the community. We don't have any friends. Our lives really don't feel good. We maybe have gotten into using alcohol and food and some other things that aren't supporting us. And this is a way out of all of that, in an easy way. It's not hard. And what we're finding out more and more, all the studies are showing that if we do this with other people who have similar issues, that it helps a whole lot. So that if I wake up this morning and I'm feeling really, really low, I'm going to start doing the stuff in my plan, but I'm going to start talking to a few people about it. I'm going to talk to my friends about it. I'm going to say, I'm feeling low, so how about if we go out for lunch? And can I call you this afternoon? And maybe we could get together. And, so that it's a different approach. Yeah. I used to think that for myself and for my family members, that this was something that we inherited, that I was going to live like this forever because I inherited this. And I don't feel that way about it anymore, because I can bring myself out of it. And my family members have learned how to bring themselves out of it. Some of them have had amazing success with that. Certainly my mother did have amazing success.
And talking about wellness recovery plan, and writing out what I'm going to do, what works for me, I think implicit in that is a degree of respect of the individual. It's not me telling you what to do. It's not me identifying, and the other thing, and this is, I think, so important, is trust. Yeah. Trust in your peers, trust in yourself. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of that gets, and I don't know if a lot of times mental health professionals and patients have a split. Yes. And they don't trust you know what I mean? For lots of different reasons. I mean, they don't tell you the truth, they don't do this, and there's all that, and there's and I think that's different here. And I think especially your peer group is a little bit different approach to that interaction.
Yeah, and that's why I had a book before called Rap and Peer Support, and we just updated it because they wrote the first one, Rap and Peer Support, back in 2004. There's been so much focus on it and so many studies of rap and peer support that I just really needed to update it. I needed to simplify it. I needed to make it so that it was really something that people could grasp onto and use, because that peer support seems to be really huge for people. And I think of it for myself years ago, just when I was in the hospital, it was the support that I got from other people that meant so much to me that I can remember now. I can remember some of those instances when I think back about those hospitalizations. I can't remember, I shouldn't say this because Nels is right here. I can't remember what the doctor said.
Right.
Well, I remember what one doctor said. He said, I said, I'm going to write a book on this stuff. And he said, there's no way you'll ever write a book. He said, there's no way you'll ever give a workshop. And he said, and the next time you come back, we're going to use electroshock therapy. And I never went back, and I started giving the workshops, and I started writing the books, and I've written loads and loads of them. So.
Yeah. What I like to do, this works off of, I mean, really sort of evolutionary and natural mechanisms. We're pack animals. We're not happy if we're alone. We need to have that sort of supportive community. And it's impressive, we always talk about these evidence-based practices. That's supposed to be the gold standard of everything that we do in medicine. And when you look at, say, the trials around medications, for example, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and you're talking about sort of developing a lifestyle, something that goes on for a long time. And I think the success, and then being designated as an evidence-based practice.
This is an evidence-based practice. And
this stuff works.
It works, and and it continues to be studied all the time. There's studies going on all the time now that people, it works in also SAMHSA, which is a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is part of the whole federal bureaucracy, has recognized this and has given a big grant to the Copeland Center for Wellness and Recovery, which really is all about RAP. So that for the next 5 years, they're a National Technical Assistance Center so that they can really promote and distribute information on RAP and recovery.
But I think it's worth saying that it's not necessarily replacing professional help. I mean,
absolutely not. No. And I think that the professionals and providers were very important to me in my life. In fact, I've had the same wonderful counselor that I've gone to for 25 years, and she's great, and it makes a huge difference. And it's part of my RAP that my regular plan is that I see her a couple times every month, and then getting further back in my plan, if I'm having early warning signs and when things are breaking down, I call her up and say, can I come in, and get a special time with her. And so that's been huge for me. And it's who people find. It could be a doctor, it could be a counselor, it can be a whole circle of people. A naturopathic physician, my primary care physician is an important part of my team, but we have those people.
It sounds like that memorable psychiatrist found this as a challenge or a threat, maybe. And we're seeing more these days, which I hope is hopeful, is that, like with motivational interviewing and with our discussions, an earlier episode around open dialogue, is we're more effective if we're acting as, say, a catalyst, or as we're in sort of helping to sort of pull out what is already there, or seeing ourselves sort of equal voices as opposed to a top-down approach from the establishment.
I wonder too if he was in a way challenging me, because I think he sort of recognized what I was about to do, and I think it was a challenge. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. That I got that challenge, and that's been important to me all these years. That was said to me that I couldn't do it, and that was just enough to say I can. But somehow I think maybe.
So he might have been very wise and
maybe
catalyzing what you need, bringing out what you needed.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, and we've touched on this before, the involvement of the family.
Yes.
Now, traditionally with mental illness, a lot of times, and addiction, both, the family sometimes get into situations where they attempt to control, or it's, why are you doing this to me? And also a little bit of shame, maybe, I don't want people to know. And yet this approach really goes a different way. And
let me say a couple of things about that. We've taken the RAP book and made family RAP, so families can develop a RAP plan together. And I find that the best way for family members will come to me and say, how can I get my son or my daughter or my husband to develop a RAP? And I say, develop your own. Tell them how you're using it, leave the book around, keep referring to it. Before long, they're really doing that. But the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill has their, I think it's the Family to Family program. And the other day when I was at the farmer's market, a woman came up to me, a Vermont woman, and she's doing family to family programs around Vermont. And she said, we have added in a piece, we've added in RAP, and we're doing RAP with everybody. And NAMI has been really supportive of RAP.
Now, NAMI is the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill, and that involves families.
Yes, that involves families. And I have often spoken to Alliance for the Mentally Ill groups, and I spoke at the conference last year, the state Vermont AMI conference, but I was really thrilled when this woman who's doing a lot of work with education around people with mental health difficulties and has family members, she said, we need to do RAP, and she really likes RAP. And so
I remember once I went to a conference up in Montpelier, and it was based for mental health practitioners, people, and consumers. This is how they talked about it. But one of the things that was really interesting was that they felt it was really important for people to feel that they could be in the process of recovery. That there used to be a sense that you were sort of stuck in your diagnosis, if you will. You know,
for years and years it was that.
Right, and that's how people saw you, and and how's your symptoms?
Yeah, right.
And the idea, whether they borrowed it from the addiction community or not, it doesn't matter. But the idea of people saying, "This is my recovery. I'm in the process of recovery."
Yes.
That's very empowering.
It is.
And then.
In what I've seen, when I started doing this work back in the late 1980s, they didn't want me. I got backlash for using the word hope. You cannot give people the word hope. It's not okay to give people hope. These are brain disorders, and they get worse. They get worse as you get older. Do not give people hope. And we've changed all that. That has all changed dramatically. And so one of the key things I began giving to people is, there is hope. My mother got better. I saw that. I saw that she got better, and that didn't happen to her, and I don't see that happening. And that people can learn to take responsibility for it and walk themselves out of it. They can educate themselves
Better than anyone else.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think one of the terms in the earlier rap was moving forward.
Yeah.
Did I see that? The idea that you're not stuck in that place, but you can bring yourself.
I think moving forward is really good words for it. People don't like help, the words help very much, but that thought of moving forward, to just making progress.
Now, you mentioned earlier, and you talked about just the word breaking down. And there does come a point sometimes with some people, they've ignored the symptoms, they've ignored the warning signs, if you will, and they get to a point, and in the old days it used to be a breakdown, it'd be a crisis, if you will. But if you're following this, and if you're using this, you can get a different outcome.
Yeah.
I mean, is that right?
Yeah, and sometimes things come up in our lives, so I don't think we should give ourselves necessarily a hard time about ignoring, because there's usually, maybe you're tired and you got allergies, and maybe kid has problems or whatever. You got
thank you.
going on, and so you get up there. You're not really just ignoring.
See, that was judgmental of me when I said ignoring. I'm sorry.
But stuff happens. You get a big bill, you see an accident, something happens to somebody you really care about. All this stuff is going on, and all of a sudden you're at this point, and you've talked about it, and you've talked about it with your peers in the group, and it's called when things are breaking down. But I've changed it. I've added onto that. it's also the place where we can avoid a crisis. It used to be that when you were at this, when things were breaking down, the next thing was you end up in the emergency room, you end up going down to the retreat to spend a few weeks, you end up going over to Cheshire Hospital or to wherever, and that was the next step. And that when I used to get to that step, that I figured, I'm going to end up on the unit at the retreat or at Dartmouth shortly. I can't go to the wedding. I can't keep taking the course. I can't do all the things I want to do. That's going to happen. That's not the way I see it anymore. I've got, and that's what we're seeing. We have the ability. I didn't think I had the ability to back that off. Other people didn't think they did either. Got that back. You couldn't. I found that you can, and that lots and lots and lots and lots of people are. That I know what the signs are. I know that if I have a lot of stuff happening in my head, I'm hearing, I'm telling myself what a bad person I am. I'm feeling really negative about everything. I have this heavy feeling in my chest. I have all these signs, and I know what they are. And I say to myself, I have to stop now. I'm going to work on a quilt for 2 hours this afternoon. I love to do that. I'm going to work on a quilt. I'm going to play the piano. I'm going to call up my daughter and have her come over. I'm going to talk to her on the phone. I have a whole plan all set out for me, so I back that right up instead of going over here and ending up in the emergency room.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really taking responsibility at a whole other level, because as you talked about initially, when you would get to a point where it wasn't tolerable anymore, then the responsibility was given up. I go to the emergency department, I go to the hospital. Versus now, I think you sort of, with the planning ahead and real concrete work, are able to sort of extend your responsibility to a greater level in our own wellness.
Yeah, and maybe some of the things that I described, I can do those things, but we've found that even somebody who's homeless, who's in prison, who's in jail, or who in very desperate circumstances, can get to that point and still back it off. We can still find things. And that's how, talking with the peers, you do a lot of problem solving and can find things so people can back that up so they don't have to go over here to that place where they're in a crisis.
And we mentioned this before we were talking about it, and a lot of times with this wellness recovery plan, and the recovery, what is wellness? And there's different degrees of illness. So when you mentioned, you said, well, we're using it for veterans.
Yeah.
And we have veterans who are using this, and
Yes,
they can define what wellness is,
Yeah.
but it's important for them to recognize
Yeah.
that there are things they need to do ahead of time and plan for.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really think, one of the things that, it's a scary statistic when they talk about how many suicides are by veterans, and I don't even want to repeat it, quite frankly.
Right.
It's a horrible thing, and it's from all the wars.
Yeah, it is
it's not just the most recent one.
World War II, we still have World War II veterans in our community who are suffering the effects of what they experienced back then.
And there's some of them are in jail. Some of them are.
Then they've spent their whole
we were
lives
talking
in
about
jail.
this. We deinstitutionalized the mental health. Well, then we put them in another institution. We put them in jail. But the idea of wellness and your responsibility to be aware of your actions and your thoughts, to have a plan. Yeah. And the other thing I wasn't always clear about, how do you enlist people to come to join your plan? How do you decide who's in your plan?
Well, there's kind of I've written into various books what are the things we're looking for. So if I find somebody that I really trust, that I feel good when I'm around them, when I know that they'll follow, if I need them to follow plans that I have, when I can't do it for myself, that they'll follow them. That they're people who are supportive, they're validating, they're not afraid, they don't get all crazy when I'm having a hard time. That those are the people that I seek out and search to be kind of in my inner circle. And I think everybody needs an inner circle like that. And mine has changed over the years because people move away, people die,
Is it a mixture of professionals and peers?
My particular one, and anybody's can be whatever they want it to be.
Right.
My counselor is certainly one of them. I have certain family members. My spouse is one. My daughter is one. And I have some very good women friends who are my age. And I have some friends from a long time ago. And one of the pieces of work I did a number of years ago was really related to how people build their support system. I wrote the loneliness workbook, and of how people develop and keep that system. So many people who have mental health difficulties have hardly anybody. And I think when I started in the worst of it, I felt like I had nobody. I really felt like I had nobody. And the people around me didn't know how to react to me. So part of it is working together as peers. And part of what I've covered in that book is how do you be with another person in a supportive way? What are the things you're going to say that are helpful, and what are you going to say that's not helpful?
Yeah.
And what I like to know is, again, we've been no secret of being dissatisfied with sort of the prevalence of using diagnoses and the prevalence of using medications. So in a world where this is often expected of me as a psychiatrist, for example, how do I move patients to more of this sort of proactive, planned, and responsible sort of approach to their own mental wellness?
Yeah, well, it's easy, and I know that lots of people in your position are doing that, because when people come in and see them, first they'll say, what's happening? What's going on in your life? Instead of just filling out all the forms and, you have this symptom and this symptom and this symptom, say, what's going on? What are you feeling like? What's happening? And then saying, okay, when you felt like this before, what's helped? What are some simple things? And you can even cite from your own experience, like, when I feel like this, I be sure I get outside and get some sun. And I talk to my spouse about it, and I talk to my friend about it, and I pet the dog, and I eat something that I really like to eat. People figure those things out, and so you can tell them, we've got a group going. And if we don't have a group going, I can work you through this system, and we can figure this out, and we can figure out how you can use things that are simple, safe, non-invasive to help yourself get so you're feeling better. You can do this yourself. And we could work on that, and you could go there, and I'm sure you do. I know you do.
I just want to, it's been great having you. This is a very fast half hour. That's amazing.
Oh, it's really half an hour.
But I wanted to point out to people that we have some books here, and there's a whole bunch of books that you can order from the
website, right?
From the website, and you can get that. What is it?
Mentalhealthrecovery.com.
Mental Health Recovery. There's the RAP and Peer Support Handbook. There's the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. There's the original RAP Plus.
This is actually fairly new. This is a very original book.
And this is the original. And then there's a workbook.
There's a workbook, but there's many more. You can look on there, like Family Wrap.
And you have ones for families? You have...
For kids, we have one.
So it's just amazing. A lot of this started in Brattleboro, and it's all from you.
It's not all from me.
Well,
it started from all these people. It's been people.
Yeah. But you've been there.
I've been working for a long time on
You've been making it happen.
I believe in it.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
And it is very, very practical and very useful. And I can't imagine there is a group that RAP would not apply to.
No, we haven't found a group. We've been looking, actually. We haven't found a group that it doesn't apply to. It works for everybody.
Well, congratulations, and thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I enjoyed
it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, you're welcome.